Vote pay 1, arguing for the proponent of the topic. And for those of you who missed yesterday's introduction, we are happy to announce that the new rule that allows the state that has 5 or more schools competing at the state level is allowed to have 2 teams. Therefore, for this year, we have Pohnpei with 2 teams. And the selection on who challenges who was made on the first day by a draw. So that's how we determine which team is challenging which team, or which team is arguing which side of the proposition. So each team will be arguing both sides of the proposition. And yesterday we completed the first round. YAP has completed both sides, and therefore they're allowed to sit in the gallery. But the other 4 teams, once this team, Koshai, and team Pohnpei 1, which is STA, completed theirs, you are welcome to sit in the gallery to join. Okay? So, again, let me just, for the record, state the debate is, we have a debate formula that this is what the judges will be scoring you by. So the format is, they're judging you by the introduction, by your main arguments, the rebuttals, the responses, your summation, or the closing. Okay? The judges will be allowed to ask clarification only for, based on your presentations. And also just to know that the questioning by the judges will not affect the grading criteria. Okay? So they've already scored you. The questioning is not to be graded. So if you, yesterday I know some of you kind of became very nervous by some of the harsh questioning coming from the judges. But no, that is just a way of ensuring that it was merely for clarification purposes, that they understand your arguments. Okay? So may I at this time ask if Russell Piqueras, if you could please represent us in our opening prayer, please. Let us all rise, please.
Let's put ourselves in the presence of the Lord, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you and we praise you for gathering us all this morning safely. As we gather here today on the second day of the National Law Day, we seek your guidance and wisdom. Bless our debaters, their discussions, and the debates, that they be filled with respect, understanding, and insight. Help us all to uphold justice and fairness in our deliberations. We ask this in the name of the Lord. Amen. Father, and Son, and Holy Spirit.
So let me introduce to you your judges for today's debate. Sitting in the middle, we have Mr. David Johnson, who's a staff attorney for the FSM Supreme Court. Sitting on his right, we have Ms. Esther Gorgiani. She's a special assistant to the State Attorney General's office in Chuuk. And we have Ms. Marisha Jones, who is a staff attorney for the FSM Supreme Court. Where's the mic? So I'm going to ask that each of you stand up and introduce yourself. Just name, state. So we start with Team Pusha. At the podium, since the mic here is not connected. That'll ease some of the nervousness. Just stand up, say your name.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Francis Lavery. I'm from Pusha.
Okay. So he's a debater.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cecil Alago, and I'm also representing Pusha State.
As a debater.
Hello, my name is Maisha George, and I'm an alternate representing the state of Pusha.
And their coach is Ms. Lena Church, sitting in the gallery. Ms. Lena she was one of our first debaters representing the state of Yap. She represented the state of Yap, and she's now living in Moshai. So thank you. Let's welcome Team Moshai. I would like to say for Team Bombay 1, if you could kindly stand up and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Destiny Esio. I'm from Bombay, and I'm one of the main speakers. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Irons. I'm one of the main speakers from Team Bombay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rihanna, and I'm the alternate representing Bombay.
And their coach is Mr. Nathan Edward, also sitting with us in the gallery. Let's give Team Bombay 1 a big round of applause. I do want to recognize those that are with us this morning, sitting in the gallery. We're very happy. There's lots of seats. You're welcome to please come. We have families that traveled here to cheer on their debaters. So thank you for supporting our cause. We also have Luca Nelson, Senator Carl with us. A lot of I really would like to also thank the host state, especially the organizing committee for the Chuuk State debate. They've helped the FSM Supreme Court in all the logistics. So thank you. I see they just came in, so thank you and welcome. Okay, without further ado, again, are we ready?
Yes.
That yes is not so sure. You want a break for 1 hour? Yes, we're ready to go? Yes. All right, okay. Judges, your timekeeper is Ms. Rochelle Ladois. So again, just for your info, this is live stream. So all the 4 states are listening in, and we are scheduled to start at 9, so we have started. What's that? May I request if you have any cell phone, you have one, put it on mute, please, silent. And a reminder for the debaters to please ensure that when you're speaking, speak directly to the mic. It is being recorded so that your families in the states can hear you, your debate. Okay? All right. Without further ado, let us now begin our debate for this morning, starting with the introduction by the proponents of the proposition. You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Honorable judges, moderator, worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine that the country you call home is no longer safe for you to live in. You are being persecuted. You board a wooden ship and sail more than 5,000 miles across the Pacific Ocean in search of a new start, a new home, and a new life. You drift into a port in hopes to refuel your ship and restock on food and water. However, instead of receiving help, you are arrested and charged as a criminal. Furthermore, you are not afforded legal representation and are forced to live on your ship, which has been dilapidated from your hard voyage. With the exception of receiving medical care at the hospital, you are not allowed to step on that country's soil. For 2 years, you live in these nightmarish conditions. What country would respond to your desperate plea for help in such a harsh and heartless way? Sadly, this is exactly how the FSM responded to 4 refugees fleeing for their lives from their home country of Nepal. This nightmare scenario brings to light the FSM's need for standardized treatment of the world's most vulnerable people, refugees. Refugees are individuals who have fled their home countries due to a well-founded fear of persecution. They are not criminals intent on causing harm. They are regular people just like you and me looking for a second chance at life. The 1951 Convention is a treaty that prescribes the most comprehensive and robust standard of treatment for refugees today. That is why the affirmative side stands before you today in strong support of the proposition which reads, "Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia should become a signatory member to the 1951 Refugee Convention." To support our position, the affirmative team has prepared 4 robust reasons. Number 1, the FSM should ratify the 1951 Convention because it is international customary law. Number 2, it would provide the FSM with the legal infrastructure it currently lacks to properly deal with refugees. Number 3, the legal framework of this convention also protects its contracting states. And number 4, signing the 1951 Convention on Refugees aligns with the FSM's cultural values. Honorable judges, the affirmative team implores you to recognize the deeply humanitarian nature of the refugee crisis. The FSM must take action now to ensure that the next time refugees arrive on our shores, we will respond to their plea for help with respect, hospitality, and compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Colby. We will now hear the introduction by the opponents of the proposition. Again, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. I would like to start our debate with giving thanks to our Heavenly Father for His presence, guidance, and blessings. We'd also like to pay our humble and sincere respects to the great state of Chuk for hosting this year's National Law Day debates, and to all the other FSM states for their hard work, participation, and attention. Ladies and gentlemen, to better understand this year's debate topic, which states, and I quote, "Be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention," end quote. My partner and I focused our attention on the definition of refugee and to particular context in the convention itself. A refugee, according to the convention, is someone who is unable or unwilling to return to the country of origin owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. This definition gives us cause to take a closer look at whether it is necessary for the FSM to indeed become a signatory member or not. Judges, my partner and I will provide further details and facts behind in our reasoning in our main argument. We will, however, be providing you with an outline of the points that will show you why we believe that the FSM does not need to accede to the 1951 Refugee Convention. Our main argument will follow these main points. Point number 1, environmental vulnerability and climate change. 2, economic and financial strain. 3, geopolitical and regional dynamics. 4, cultural and social integration challenges. And lastly, legal and sovereignty issues. We, the negative side, do indeed believe that one of the main responsibilities of being a human being is to be humane to all living creatures, notwithstanding the race, religion, gender, social status, or political opinion of his or her origins. However, as a wise person once said, and I quote, "Check the pool for water before diving in," end quote. This is what we as logical and responsible citizens of the FSM must do before jumping into that pool. We need to weigh all the pros and cons of any issue before signing off on something that will be detrimental to the very survival of the FSM itself. We are known for having big hearts. Yes, indeed, but we also need to remind ourselves and everyone else that we have big brains and heads as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Koshai. We will now proceed on with the main arguments, starting with the proponents' main presentation, 15 minutes.
On November 17, 2014, 36 migrants from India and Nepal arrived in Yap Harbor by sea seeking fuel, food, and water. Upon arrival, none of these migrants had travel documents or passports. Nearly a year later, in October 2015, 4 of those migrants were determined to be refugees by the UNHCR. The 4 Nepalese refugees were transferred to Pohnpei Harbor, a low-security holding facility used to detain criminal defendants accused of human trafficking, illegal fishing, and other immigration violations, and were kept in their now dilapidated wooden vessel that had to be regularly drained of seawater several times a day to be kept from sinking. Alongside not being housed in a decent living situation, the government confiscated the refugees' electronics, which posed no health or security implications to the FSM. Visitation was restricted. The refugees were not given legal representation or counsel. The refugees lived under these harsh conditions for 2 years before they were given a fair trial. On June 7, 2017, these refugees were brought before the FSM Supreme Court in the case of Tinsina versus Santos. In the end, the FSM Supreme Court ruled in favor of the refugees, declaring that the convention was international customary law and therefore the FSM had to abide by it. This brings up our first main point. The FSM government should ratify the 1951 convention because it is international customary law. International customary law is any legal practice that gains its binding power not from a formal agreement, but from the fact that most countries consistently follow it. Widespread adherence to these laws is motivated by necessity, not convenience. For instance, the respectful treatment of diplomats, such as granting them immunity from prosecution, has become a customary rule among states. Another example is the law of the sea, which dictates that if a vessel in distress is seen or heard by another vessel, that vessel will rush to their aid. These unwritten agreements represent a shared belief among states in their moral and legal obligations, and as long as a state does not legally reject this practice, they are bound to it. The FSM is bound by international customary law. In fact, the FSM Supreme Court declared exactly this in its conclusion of the 2017 Tinsina v. Santos case, and I quote, "Like all nations, the FSM is bound by international customary law. This obligation exists regardless of accession to any particular treaty," end quote. Considering that we are a member of the United Nations and that the UN as a community observes the 1951 Convention, the FSM must acknowledge that the Convention is international customary law. The FSM Supreme Court affirmed this in their 2017 Tunsina v. Santos case when they wrote, and I quote, "What is clear is that at least some provisions in the 1951 Convention on Refugees are now embedded in international customary law," end quote. Therefore, as seen in the court ruling of Tunsina v. Santos, when the court ruled in favor of the refugees because of international customary law, the convention should be upheld by the FSM. Although the FSM is required to uphold the convention, there is still confusion when it comes to how the government interacts with refugees. As shown by this excerpt from the case of Tunsina v. Santos, and I quote, "The court recognizes that the failure was the result of uncertainty in what appears to be a legal void," end quote. Which brings me to our second main point. The FSM should become signatory to the 1951 Convention on Refugees because it would provide the FSM with the legal framework it currently lacks to humanely deal with refugees. The harrowing Nepalese court case clearly demonstrates that the dangers of not having a solid refugee policy in place. The harsh conditions that the FSM subjected the 4 Nepalese refugees to are completely unacceptable in a modern immigration system and highlights the FSM's need for a legal framework for dealing with refugees. If the FSM were to sign the 1951 Convention, it would be adopting an internationally recognized legal framework that secures humane treatment for refugees. Embedded in the Convention is a comprehensive set of internationally recognized guidelines and principles for the treatment of refugees. These guidelines and principles would help the FSM develop domestic legislation that would afford the refugees within its borders basic rights and protections such as access to asylum procedures, access to courts, travel documents, basic health care, education, and employment opportunities. It is imperative to emphasize that the Convention primarily aims to secure fundamental human rights for refugees. It seeks to offer them a baseline level of protection. When discussing the merits of the Convention, we must keep the forefront the reality of refugees. Refugees, as defined by the Convention, are individuals forced to flee their home country due to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. This makes refugees some of the most vulnerable people in the world. By embracing these standards, the FSM would not only showcase its dedication to upholding core human rights, but also demonstrate a steadfast commitment to principles of compassion and solidarity towards those in need. The standard of refugee treatment outlined in this convention resulted from the cooperative effort of the UNHCR and member states of the UN. This is important because generally, when a large group of nations come together with their respective cultures and ideas, they produce fair and unbiased policies. Thus, signing this convention would prevent the FSM from creating its own self-serving refugee policies, which would prove harmful to refugees and the FSM people. Now, my speaking partner, Destiny Esiel, will explain how the Refugee Convention of 1951 also protects contracting states by embedding considerations to safeguard their national security and sovereignty. Honorable judges, moderator, ladies and gentlemen. The third reason that the FSM should sign the 1951 Convention is that its legal framework also protects the contracting states. The first way the Convention protects the contracting states is by embedding protective measures to safeguard that country's national security. One way that the 1951 Convention does this is by outlining the eligibility requirements for being granted refugee status. This ensures that persons who pose a threat to the national security are not granted the protections of the Convention. Article 1, Paragraph F clearly states that the provisions in the convention do not apply to any person who has committed crimes against peace, a war crime, a crime against humanity, a serious non-political crime outside the country of refuge, or has been guilty of acts contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. Another example that illustrates that the Convention does prioritize national security is Article 28, which allows contracting states to withhold issuing travel documents under circumstances that may pose a risk to the national security or disrupt public order. This highlights the Convention's spirit of balancing refugee protection with the security interests of the host country. The second way the Convention protects contracting states is by embedding protective measures to safeguard the country's sovereignty. One way the Convention does this is by granting contracting states the flexibility to develop its own domestic laws around its broad principles. So, for example, although Article 13 of the Convention seeks to secure a refugee's right to movable and immovable property, such as land, it stipulates that countries are only required to afford this right in a manner that, and I quote, not less favorable than that accorded to aliens generally in the same circumstances, end quote. In other words, with regards to owning property, refugees would be granted the same rights as a foreign national. Therefore, Pompey's land laws would remain unchanged even after we sign the Convention. Another example of the Convention respecting a country's sovereignty can be found in Article 42, which allows for any state to make reservations or formally declare exclusions to provisions of the conventions at the same time of accession. This would obligate the FSM to, if it should so choose, to not obligate itself to certain parts of the convention so long as the reservations do not go against the core principles of the treaty. A final indication that the convention respects the sovereignty of contracting states is seen in the fact that it does not contain any mandate for signatory countries to accept any or all refugees that arrive on its shores. This means that countries that sign the convention retain sovereignty over their immigration and asylum policies and have the discretion to determine the conditions under which refugees may enter and stay within their territories. These are just a couple examples, but this balance of protecting the fundamental rights of refugees and contracting states is evident throughout the provisions of the Convention, making the Convention all more attractive for the FSM. The fourth and final reason to support this proposition is that signing the 1951 Convention on Refugees aligns with the deeply rooted cultural values of compassion, hospitality, and solidarity that are inherent to the FSM people. Our culture places great emphasis on caring for those in need and providing refuge to those facing hardship or persecution. Unfortunately, our current history of treatment towards refugees does not embody these cultural ideals. By signing the Convention, we honor these cultural values and demonstrate our commitment to upholding the principles of compassion and solidarity on a global scale. Furthermore, our tradition of welcoming visitors with open arms extends beyond our shores as we extend the same warmth and hospitality to refugees seeking safety and protection. By signing the Convention, we reaffirm our cultural identity and showcase to the world the values that define us as a nation. In doing so, we not only strengthen our reputation and international standing, but also uphold the rich cultural heritage that we hold dear. As a culture deeply rooted in the traditions of respect and hospitality, we cannot be complacent with treating refugees, people fleeing for their lives, as if they were akin to sex traffickers or criminals who are robbing our shores, our oceans of its precious resources. Refugees are humans, not criminals. They have been dealt a bad hand, and it is our duty as members of the human race to look out for each other in times of peace and also in times of need. It is part of our Micronesian culture to help those who come to our homes in need of help. We cannot ignore this humanitarian aspect of this issue. We are debating whether we are willing to give the most vulnerable people in the world the best shot at a second chance of life.
Thank you, Team Pope. So that concludes the proponent's main argument. We will now proceed on with the rebuttal by the opponents, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, proponent team. I'll address you guys' main argument. You mentioned in your fourth main point that becoming a signatory aligns with the FSM's cultural values. However, our political values are sensitive, and in the context of hosting refugees, we would be forcing adherence to not only just the refugees, but also to our people. For your third main point, you mentioned something along the lines of legal protections. What about those who are oversighted by environmental displacement? Again, environmental displacement is on the forefront of our minds. We need to know more about this. We also know this, that in our research we found out that there are 40 plus countries that are non-signatories. And according to the proponent's main arguments, there are benefits to becoming a signatory member. My question is this: why then have these non-signatories not acceded to take advantage of these benefits? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, opponents. We'll now hear the response from the proponent's response to the rebuttal, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you for your rebuttal. However, our opponents failed to address our first 2 main points, and they failed to understand our third. But I would like to respond to the one they rebutted. Our proponents mentioned how signing the convention would pose a threat to our culture. However, it will not. It is never a bad thing to introduce new cultures into our society. It would only make us it would make us value our culture more. Having refugees in our country can bring several benefits, such as cultural enrichment, economic contributions, innovations, and entrepreneurship, demographic renewal, humanitarian values, and social coherence. Actually, would it not signing the convention actually dishonor our culture? Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will hear the main argument from the opponents, and you have 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Imagine a small island nation surrounded by vast stretches of ocean, where communities rely on fragile ecosystems and limited resources to sustain their way of life. Hold on, this is not an imagined scenario. This is reality, which is the FSM. In this delicate balance, every decision holds immense significance. Today, we delve deep into the complex crossroads of environmental vulnerability, economic strain, cultural dynamics, and sovereignty challenges faced by the FSM in the context of hosting refugees. We implore you to explore how these challenges intertwine and the implications they hold for the FSM's sovereignty, security, and social harmony. For my first main point, environmental vulnerability and climate change. Small island nations like the FSM face profound challenges due to limited resources and fragile ecosystems. According to the Secretary of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, under the Adaptation Fund of the Conference to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, better known as COP28, reads, and I quote, $9 million will be provided to the FSM in a project to reduce the vulnerability of communities in Yap, Chu, Bunping, and Gujarat due to the impacts of climate change, end quote. The unique geographical and environmental characteristics of this nation make it particularly susceptible to the adverse effects of hosting refugees. One critical concern revolves around the availability of land, which is both essential for livelihoods and sustenance. According to PacificResearch.org, and I quote, the total land area of the FSM is 271 square miles, including the numerous islands of Yap, Chuuk, and Bunping, end quote. Moreover, freshwater supply represents another pivotal issue. As stated in the National Rich to Reef Program document, and I quote, about 60% of water resources in the FSM exist as surface water in the form of small streams and are dry for about 20% of the year. The topography in the stream basins are not conducive to the construction of economical dams and requires extensive and costly treatments. Many households today still need catchments, end quote. Most of the FSM relies heavily on limited freshwater supplies, and any increase in refugees will strain existing infrastructure and exacerbate water scarcity issues. In addition to land and water, waste management poses another significant challenge. On our small island state of Gujarat, we lack the adequate facilities and technology for waste disposal, leading to environmental degradation and public health risks. According to the FSM country snapshot under waste collection and disposal, reads, and I quote, for Gujarat's municipality, lack of effective collection services means that waste continues to be disposed of in uncontrolled local dump sites, contributing to environmental degradation, end quote. The arrival of refugees would amplify the ever-extending strain of waste management. And beyond these immediate concerns, climate change further complicates the landscape. Pacific Island nations like the FSM are on the forefront of environmental deterioration, facing threats such as sea level rise, ocean acidification, and extreme weather events. These impacts not only jeopardizes the lives and livelihoods of local populations, but also contributes to displacement. And while the Refugee Convention provides frameworks for political and conflict-related refugees, as stated in Article 1, Section 8 of that convention, they do not suitably address the unique challenges posed by climate-induced displacement. Unlike political refugees who flee persecution and benefit from established legal protections, environmental refugees lack clear recognition and support under the current international frameworks. This oversight leaves the FSM vulnerable to absorbing significant humanitarian responsibilities without commensurate international assistance or legal safeguards. For my second main point, the economic and financial strain. The FSM already faces significant economic challenges due to its small and fragile economy. Hosting refugees could worsen these issues by placing an additional strain on already limited resources. The FSM government has recently gotten approval from the US government to renew the Compact of Free Association Agreement. It is not a hidden fact that the FSM government relies heavily on compact funds to financially function. The burden of supporting refugees would encompass various aspects such as healthcare, education, and livelihood opportunities, which has mainly been provided by the compact agreements. The FSM will struggle to provide adequate healthcare services to both its existing population and to refugees, leading to overcrowded hospitals and stretched medical personnel. Yap State recently suffered an employment strike due to financial burdens. Gujarat is in desperate need of new medical facilities to provide proper health care. Providing the same assistance as required under the 1951 Convention to refugees will greatly add on to the already existing burdens. Educational facilities, already under-resourced, could face increased demand. According to an article in Radio New Zealand, the FSM is facing a shortage of teachers. How then will the FSM provide the necessary educational opportunities for a sudden increase in population in regards to hosting refugees? Moreover, The introduction of refugees could disrupt the local labor market. Limited job opportunities in the FSM will not be sufficient to accommodate both locals and refugees, leading to increased competition for employment and lower wages for all. This economic strain perpetuates cycles of poverty and unemployment, impacting the overall stability and development of the nation. According to WorldBank.org, and I quote, the FSM is currently at 41.2% living below the poverty line, end quote, and that is below the poverty line. The FSM currently relies on international aid and assistance to support its development projects and infrastructure. And increased refugee populations would heighten the FSM's dependency on external development initiatives. Funds that could otherwise be invested in improving infrastructure such as roads, utilities, and telecommunications might instead be redirected to meet the immediate needs of refugees. This diversion could hinder long-term economic growth and sustainability, trapping the FSM in a cycle of aid dependency. And furthermore, international aid often comes with conditions and limitations that may not align with the FSM's national priorities or development plans. This could restrict the FSM's autonomy in decision-making and limit its ability to pursue sustainable development strategies. As a result, the FSM could become increasingly reliant on external factors for financial support and policy guidance, compromising its sovereignty and hindering its efforts to achieve self-sufficiency. For my third main point, the geopolitical and regional dynamics. Regional agreements and protocols in the Pacific region already exist to address various aspects of migration and displacement. These agreements are tailored to the unique challenges and context of Pacific Island nations, taking into account factors such as environmental vulnerability, limited resources, and cultural considerations. Forcing adherence to the Refugee Convention could disrupt these established frameworks. Pacific nations have developed cooperative mechanisms that emphasize regional solidarity and mutual support, which may not align with the universal standards set by the Convention. Moreover, the geopolitical dynamics of the Pacific region are intricate and sensitive. These small island states, like those in the FSM, often have limited resources and capacities to manage a sudden influx of refugees. To add on, security concerns are also paramount, as any significant increase in population due to refugee flows will strain already fragile public services and infrastructure. Issues related to public safety and national stability become heightened in such scenarios, as the FSM may struggle to maintain social cohesion and law enforcement capabilities. I'll now pass on the floor to my partner Francis, who will elaborate on our remaining points.
For our fourth main point, cultural and social integration challenges. The FSM is home to a rich establishment of Pacific Island cultures, each with its own unique traditions, values, and societal norms. These cultural identities are deeply ingrained in the fabric of FSM society. Introducing refugees from diverse backgrounds may lead to significant cultural clashes and social tensions. A very reliable source, an example for us to learn from is that of the United States. The Native Americans were the original settlers of North America, and with the discovery of the new lands and due to religious conflicts in England, the Pilgrims arrived and integrated their practices and beliefs. Today, the Native Americans are considered a minority in their own lands, and we do not want to be a minority in our own lands. Pacific Island communities place a strong emphasis on communal harmony and a collective identity which may be challenged by the introduction of new cultural practices and belief systems. For instance, issues related to gender roles, family structure, and religious practices might differ significantly between the local population and incoming refugees. Such disparities constrain social cohesion and integration efforts within FSM communities, leading to misunderstandings and conflicts. The FSM will face constraints in its ability to accommodate and integrate refugees effectively. One of the primary challenges could be the limited capacity to provide comprehensive language education and cultural orientation programs tailored to the needs of refugees. Language barriers alone can pose significant obstacles as refugees may struggle to communicate effectively in local languages such as Portuguese, Vishayan, or Pohnpeian. Without adequate language skills, refugees will find it difficult to access essential services, secure employment, or engage with local communities. Furthermore, FSM's geographical isolation and limited resources could further complicate efforts to provide robust support systems for refugees, including healthcare, education, and social services. These challenges underscore the essential strain on FSM's infrastructure and public services, raising valid concerns about the feasibility and sustainability of integrating refugees into local communities. For our fifth and final main point, legal and sovereignty issues. Joining the Refugee Convention could potentially pose challenges to FSM sovereignty, particularly concerning the management of borders and immigration policies. By signing onto the convention, FSM might be obligated to adhere to international standards and procedures that could undermine its ability to independently determine who enters or stays within its borders. These could lead to concerns about the erosion of national sovereignty and the ability to protect FSM's cultural and societal interests. The convention's definition of a refugee does not adequately encompass the complex displacement challenges faced by Pacific Island nations like the FSM. These situations do not fit into the traditional refugee definition, raising questions about whether the convention's legal framework can effectively address the specific needs and realities of FSM. Furthermore, becoming a party to the convention could involve significant legal and administrative adjustments within FSM's existing legal frameworks. Such changes can constrain FSM's legal systems and administrative capacity, impacting its ability to manage refugee and asylum issues while balancing other national priorities. As a sovereign nation, the FSM maintains its unique geopolitical position and alliances, which may be influenced by its decision to join the Refugee Convention. The FSM is a party to the protocol additional of the 1949 Geneva Convention, and we are in fact legally obliged to assist with humanitarian assistance. Additionally, in an article written by Maya Jenner, which reads, and I quote, a professor of international migration law at the University of Oslo, which reads, and I quote, many of the world's top refugee hosting countries have not acceded to the 1951 Refugee Convention, and yet they engage with the international refugee regime in a number of ways. Not only are international refugee law norms being disseminated and adopted in these states, but also non-signatory states often participate in the development of international refugee law by being present and active in global arenas for refugee protection. End quote. Signatory or non-signatory, we will in fact be doing our part to assist with humanitarian issues. Thank you.
Thank you to the opponent's main argument. We will now hear the proponent's rebuttal, and you have 5 minutes. 5 minutes for your rebuttal. For the audience, we have water in the foyer. Please help yourself.
Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate the points raised by our opponents during their main arguments. However, we respectfully disagree with their points. If I recall correctly, my opponent stated that signing this convention would potentially pose a threat to our national security. But this claim lacks evidence. Furthermore, our opponent's claim overlooks the vigorous screening and vetting processes refugees undergo before being resettled. This process includes biometric checks, background investigations, interview with multiple government agencies, and etc. Also, the idea that refugees would bring any trouble or also contribute to climate change as well is in fact xenophobic, and this is a perspective we need to avoid when making legal decisions. My opponents also stated that this convention would pose a financial burden to the FSM and that we don't have enough resources to take care of them. Actually, the FSM would not be financially burdened by refugees. Firstly, the UNHCR does, in fact, provide resources to aid countries in dealing with refugees. For instance, let us refer back to the Nepalese refugee incident from 2017. According to the court case, Tunsina v. Santos, the UNHCR provided lots of financial aid to the refugees. They covered fees for things such as their food and their airfare, so the FSM would not be alone in this process. Furthermore, let us remember that refugees are people like us. They would not want to remain dependent on their host countries forever. With this in mind, refugees would put in the work and effort to make significant contributions to society, as studies have shown. Our opponents are trying to make it seem like we have to accept every refugee. However, this is simply not true. The convention doesn't require each member state to accept any or all refugees that arrive on our shores. That power is under our control. So if we no longer have the capacity to host refugees, we could stop accepting them. But let us remember that refugees would not want to be independent and make a living. That refugees want to be independent and they want to make a living for themselves. Lastly, our opponents stated that this convention might impede our national sovereignty. However, the convention does not impede on a country's national sovereignty because it would go against the nature of the United Nations Charter as seen in Chapter 1, Article 2 of the United Nations Charter. The organization is based on the principle of sovereign equality of all its members. This principle is maintaining a nation's sovereignty is integrated into the convention as seen in Article 42, which allows nations to make reservations on the convention. Furthermore, in our affirmative main argument, we showed multiple examples of how the provision in the convention safeguards the sovereignty of contracting states. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Pompey. We will now hear the response by the opponents. This is their response to the opponent's response to the rebuttal, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, proponents, for your rebuttals. We will now address your statements and concerns. First, let us take you back to our main points. Number 1, Micronesia is grappling with serious environmental challenges like rising sea levels and natural disasters. We believe these issues require focused resources and solutions tailored to our unique circumstances. Adopting to the convention might divert attention and resources away from the critical environmental adaptation efforts that are essential for our survival. Secondly, our region's geopolitical landscape is complex and resources are limited. While we value international cooperation, becoming a signatory member could strain our diplomatic relations or lead to expectations that exceed our capacities to support refugee issues effectively. Thirdly, Micronesia's small population and rich cultural identity are sources of pride and strength. Integrating refugees in a way that preserves our social cohesion and cultural integrity is a delicate balance. Stereotype approaches outlined in the convention might not fully account for our local nuances potentially impacting our community fabric. And lastly, as a sovereign nation, we cherish our ability to make decisions that best serve our people. Signing the convention may impose legal obligations that could restrict our flexibility and managing refugee flows or responding to emerging domestic priorities. The UNHCR might provide resources and financial aid, but what about the land? Thank you.
Thank you, opponents, for your response. We will now hear the summation or the closing arguments. And we'll start with the proponent's conclusion. Each team will be provided 4 minutes for their closing arguments.
Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the negative side for an enjoyable debate and for being great opponents on this important topic. The affirmative side would like to reaffirm its position that it is strongly in favor of the proposition which states, and I quote, "Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia should become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention." End quote. In our main argument, the affirmative team provided 4 robust reasons to support our position. Number 1, the FSM should sign the 1951 Convention because the FSM Supreme Court has already recognizes major components to be international customary law. The FSM is bound by international customary law and therefore should uphold the convention. Number 2, the FSM government currently lacks a solid legal framework for dealing with refugees in a way that respects their basic fundamental rights. The 2017 Tensina v. Santos case clearly demonstrates the unnecessary harm and suffering that our unpreparedness caused for innocent and vulnerable refugees. Signing this convention would fill this legal void. Number 3, the 1951 Convention also safeguards the national security and sovereignty of its member countries. This balance of protecting refugee rights and member countries is evident throughout the entire convention, and clear examples were provided in our main argument. And number 4, the decision to sign the 1951 Convention aligns with our Micronesian cultural principles of respect, hospitality, and solidarity. Signing the convention would expand our international personality and allow us to show the international community these core ideals of our culture. What do we want the FSM to be? Are we complacent with the FSM detaining innocent refugees on a leaky boat for 2 whole years and treating them like criminals? Are we satisfied with being a country who denies refugees basic human rights? The answer from the affirmative team is a resounding no. That is not who we are, and it is definitely not who we want to be. This calls for a change. The FSM must act now to prevent future mistakes like the one in 2017 from happening again. Refugees do not have a choice, but we do. So let us use this choice and raise our voice to do what is moral and what is right. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Pompey, for your closing. We'll now hear the closing arguments from Team Boshai. Again, you have 4 minutes. 4 minutes for your closing argument.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1951 Convention related to the Statutes of Refugees was originally proposed by the UN General Assembly in 1946 after World War II left millions of refugees in the European continent. Therefore, the wording, and I quote, relating to the events before January 1st, 1951 and within Europe, end quote, were the cornerstone of this convention. In later years, the 1967 protocol removed these limitations. However, the real question here is, why then have some of these countries remained non-signatory since then? As the negative team, it is our responsibility to prove to you that becoming signatory members of the 1951 Refugee Convention is not in our best interest. We have shared with you that the FSM is environmentally vulnerable and climate change is not on our side. We share that the idea of becoming knights in shining armor will be an economic and financial strain for the FSM. Because of the geopolitical and regional dynamics that the FSM currently has, it would be unwise to become a signatory member. Furthermore, considering the cultural and social integration challenges that will definitely arise, it is definitely unwise to jump into that waterless pool. And finally, the legal and sovereignty hassles that will be most burdensome is yet another point to consider when the issue of the 1951 Refugee Convention is being handled. Our proponents may say that it is our Christian duty to provide assistance for refugees, and we should, but not as a signatory member of the convention, but more so to Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, which also recognizes the rights of persons to seek asylum from persecution. Lebanon, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Malaysia, India, Thailand. These are some examples of non-signatories, but yet have abided by international refugee laws and have taken in refugees. They have also played important roles in influencing the development of international refugee laws. Lebanon, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India are also members of the UNHCR's Executive Committee, which is tasked with advising the High Commissioners on the exercise of his or her functions under the statute of his office and with approving the High Commissioner's assistance programs. In addition to the Executive Committee, non-signatory countries participate in other high-level meetings and fora. Non-signatory countries have participated in the negotiations leading to the adoption of the 2016 New York Declaration for for Refugees and Migrants, which set out the principles that would guide the global response to refugee displacement. They have participated in the General Assembly negotiations leading to the adoption of the Global Compact on Refugees, otherwise known as GCR, in December of 2018. And non-signatories were also in the first Global Refugee Forum in late 2019, where pledges were made to put the GCR into action. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Koshai, for the closing argument. I would ask that we kindly give both sides a big round of applause before the judges ask their questions. Thank you. So now we will allow our justices, our judges, to ask any questions they may have for the debaters. So judges?
First, I'd just like to say I am really impressed with the amount of work and the amount of research that has gone into both of your positions. Shocked, to be honest with you. I have two questions I'll ask somewhat similar, but if I can start with Team Koshai. You were talking about climate refugees and the idea that the FSM might be swamped with the influx of refugees from this potential event. Do you think how would you respond to the idea that it might be actually in the benefit of the FSM? They might be the FSM and especially citizens who live in habitats that are on the coasts might be the ones fleeing the FSM and seeking refuge elsewhere. I think oftentimes we consider the influx of people from abroad into our country. In the balance, which side do you think would benefit from being protected under the convention?
That's directed to the opponents.
And I'll just ask the question again more simply. Do you think that FSM citizens could actually benefit by being members of the convention in the case that they might seek refuge abroad due to climate change?
When it comes to the argument that we were talking about the context of hosting refugees. We weren't exactly talking about refugees going out. However, this does pose a question that we need to answer. But for now, I'm trying to find the right words to say. But I would say that as of right now, we don't know where these people are going to. So it is still questionable on whether we should send these people out. As Micronesians, we are more of connection with each other. If we do send these people out, we don't know what will happen to these people. So again, I'll just say that in our main arguments, we were talking about the context of hosting refugees, not sending them out. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, opponents.
Thank you, and I understand that the FSM will take care of its own, and I agree with the idea that they might not leave the FSM. And to Team Pompey, how do you feel about climate change? Do you think that it's a real threat to habitats and the citizens in the FSM? Is climate change a real potential problem?
Take the podium, please.
Thank you for that question. So yes, we do believe that climate change is a really big threat to our islands. But under this convention, climate refugees, let's say climate refugees, they wouldn't be protected by it.
Thank you.
say that was quite an intense debate. I really enjoyed it. Both teams made very strong points, and you delivered very well. Very impressed. Inspired as well, because I see future leaders sitting in front of me, and leaders that are very passionate about issues of the nation. So congratulations, and it was interesting to watch both teams. My question is to the proponent. You argued that the FSM should be a signatory member because it promotes cultural values. It aligns with the Micronesian values, also aligns with Christian values. Do you think the FSM is ready to accept these refugees that come with their different religious belief? Because you also argued on the human rights, and one of the human rights is the right to express, practice their religion. Do you think the FSM is ready to accept a religion that is different, which I believe the main ones here is Christianity? Do you think the FSM is ready to accept and recognize a different religion from what is already in place here?
Thank you for that question. So our answer would be yes, we are indeed very ready. Because if we take a look around our islands, there are several different religions and denominations that we have right now. So if these refugees do come with different religions and beliefs and whatever religions they have, we are ready to accept them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Say something. It was very hard to keep a straight face because you guys all did so well. Even yesterday's debate, I was very impressed. You guys all advocated so passionately, and you sounded like real lawyers, so you should be very proud of yourself. My question is for Team Prashai. So you raised the shortage of teachers and healthcare representation. What are your thoughts on whether the increase in the FSM population actually benefit the labor workforce?
Those standing in the foyer, please come in. There are seats available in the front.
Sorry, can you restate your question again, please?
Sure. On the issue of the FSM having shortage of teachers or healthcare workers, wouldn't the refugees coming to the FSM and increase of population actually benefit in this area?
I would say that it would benefit. However, there is no guarantee that the skills that are coming in to our hosting country would be pretty much in place for us. I hope that I can answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess that concludes the questionings by the judges. So again, let's give Team Koshai and Team Pompe a big round of applause. You are allowed to sit in the gallery for the next debate. For those of you who just joined us, you came in time just for the last debate, which will be Team Chuk and Team Pompe 2. So we'll take a short 10-minute break before we move on to the next debate. Again, we have water in the foyer. Please help yourself. There are sandwiches in the back. You're welcome to help yourself. Thank you. We'll have a short 10-minute break. Thank you. Good job.
FSM National Law in 2024. This would be the last debate for this year's debate between Team Bombay OLM and Team Chuk. Judges, are we ready? Timekeeper? Okay, before we tell you the last debate for the public to know, may I ask that start with the opponent and proponents for the proposition to take the podium and introduce yourself before we.
My name is Kaloai Xavier Karmanaka Johani, and I represent True State as a main debater.
My name is Bonan Rain Jr., and I represent Jude as the main debater.
Hello everyone, my name is Faith Akemiko, and I represent Jude as the alternate debater.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Team Chuk is coached by Esther, and let's give them a big round of applause. At this time, may I invite the opponents of the proposition to take the podium and introduce yourself.
Good morning, judges, ladies and gentlemen, and opponents. My name is Hitomi Irinarte, and I am representing the Bombay team as one of the main speakers.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alicia Josephine Reyes-Richard, and I am representing Team Bombay from Arley University School as one of the main debaters.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jasmine Rose Wierman, and I am the alternate speaker of Bombay Team 2 from Oldham. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Bombay Team Our Lady of Mercy Catholic School is coached by Ben Figueres and Russell Figueres. And this year's proposition reads, be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia should become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention. That's the topic that the teams will be debated on. And debaters, be reminded that the judges will be grading you on 6 part of your main argument, which is you will start with the introduction, main argument, rebuttal, and response. And those are the sections the judges will be grading you on. So to start out the debate we will start with the introduction from the proponents. And proponents, you have 3 minutes for your introduction.
Good morning, honorable judges, worthy debaters, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kaloai Xavier Karmanaka Johani, and I will be giving the introduction to our positive main speech. The proposing resolution states, be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia should become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention. Today, we come together to tackle one of the most pressing humanitarian challenges in our time. In today's interconnected world, hosting refugees isn't just about policy. It's about our values and responsibilities. It's a chance to show compassion, empathy, and humanitarian aid to those who need it. As refugees have reached the highest numbers ever recorded since World War II, based on the UNHCR 2022 Global Trends Report, this acknowledges that refugees need help more than ever before. So I would like to present some insight into why we should consider becoming a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention. First and foremost, becoming a member of the 1951 Refugee Convention and becoming a host country to refugees is an act of morality and an act of humanitarianism. We can't look at this issue and turn a blind eye, knowing that this is the right thing to do and that we are helping the people who are in great danger with the opportunity to reestablish themselves in safety. In a globalized world, we should share global responsibility for global issues. Secondly, becoming a member of the 1951 Refugee Convention will enable the FSM to build better relationships with other countries and in turn, bolster a good reputation for the nation. Lastly, being a member of the 1951 Refugee Convention will provide opportunities to benefit our state in various areas. Thank you.
Thank you, proponents of the proposition. We will now hear the introduction from the opponents of the proposition, and you have 3 minutes for the introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges and honorable proponents. Knock knock, who's there? Refugees. It is a question that resonates deeply with the plight of millions seeking refuge worldwide. Today, our team stands before you as staunch advocates for sovereignty, societal integrity, and security. And we are firmly opposed to the proposition that the Federated States of Micronesia should become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention. Micronesia, a nation cherished for its cultural richness and autonomy, faces a critical decision at this crossroads. While the principles of compassion and humanitarianism are noble, the practical realities demand a careful examination for the potential consequences. Our arguments will delve into the intricacies of sovereignty, resource constraints, and security risks grounded in real-world examples and historical context. Knock knock, who's there? Refugees. What will be the Micronesian response? Yes, come in. If refugees were to come knocking at our doors tomorrow, we will welcome them with open hearts, like what we did with the Nepalese and Indians back in 2014. Then we take care of them the Micronesian way. We will look for better places, countries that can take better care of them. When Micronesians did all of this back in 2014, were we a signatory of the 1951 Refugee Convention? The answer is no. So why do we need to become a signatory now if we were able to do all those things back then and are still able to do the same things tomorrow even though we are not a signatory? As we embark on this debate, let us not forget the weight of our responsibility to uphold the interests of the Federated States of Micronesia and its citizens while navigating the complexities of the global refugee crisis. In the words of former US President Ronald Reagan, and I quote, "We are a nation that has a government, not the other way around," end quote. Let us approach this debate with intellect, empathy, and a commitment to truth. Thank you.
Thank you, opponents of the proposition. We will now hear the main arguments from the proponents, and you have 15 minutes for your main argument.
Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, worthy opponents, families, and friends. I, Paul Honorary Jr., stand here as the representative of the positive team in favor of the proposed resolution. Although my worthy opponents gave their points on why the proposed resolution should not be adopted, it still hasn't dispelled our decision. Allow me this opportunity to explain to you why. My partner Kaluay has already introduced our 3 points, but please bear with me as I further elaborate. The proposed amendment states, be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia should become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention. Today, the topic being discussed at hand is one that requires careful consideration. Before moving any further, I would like to define what a refugee is and give a brief background of the convention and how it came about. Based on the UNHCR Global Trends Report, People who migrate fall under one of these four categories. The first are migrants, people who choose to cross an international border to find a better way of living in a foreign country. Two, asylum seekers, people who leave their country and seek protection in another country. However, they have not been legally recognized as refugees. Three, refugee, a displaced person who has left their own country and crossed national boundaries and is unable or unwilling to return to his or her country for risk of being persecuted. 4. An internally displaced person. This is a person who is forced to leave their homes within their own country to avoid conflict like a refugee, but has not left their country of origin. As we discuss the situation of refugees, I want us to keep in mind that these are people who are being forced to leave their homes because their lives are in danger. They have crossed international borders, and returning back to their country of origin isn't an option for fear of being harmed. Migration in the back has long existed, sometimes voluntarily or involuntarily, but the main reason was always to find a better place to make a living. At the end of World War I, a massive wave of international refugees sparked the creation of laws and guidelines to protect displaced persons. At the beginning of World War II, almost 40 million people were displaced, and these rules and regulations were tested. As a result, the United Nations was formed and was committed to protecting refugees. In 1948, the Universal Declaration of People's Rights was established to ensure the protection of every human being was anchored in international law. In 1951, the United Nations formed the Refugee Convention to call for all nations of our world the responsibility in ensuring that the most vulnerable people in the world were protected wherever in the world they found themselves. At the end of 2022, 108.4 million people worldwide were forcibly displaced as a result of persecution, conflict, violence, human rights violence, and events seriously disturbing public order, UNHCR reported. Based on their statistics, this is the largest ever increase in forced displacement worldwide. Refugees are suffering from the many horrors of war and poverty they are experiencing, and they are scattered around the world seeking a place to gain freedom and peace. Becoming a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention helps us fulfill our moral obligation and our humanitarian obligation to other nations. It is basic that helping those in need is a simple act of being human. In the last paragraph of the FSM preamble, it states, Micronesia began in the days when men explored seas in rafts and canoes. The Micronesian nation is born in an age when men voyage among stars. Our world itself is an island. We extend to all nations what we seek from each: peace, friendship, cooperation, and love in our common humanity. The very foundation of our nation, the FSM Constitution, encourages us to fulfill the responsibility to all nations. We want to live in a world where people who are in grave danger have the opportunity to rebuild their lives in safety. In Article 3, 6, and 13 of the Human Rights Act under the United Nations, it lays out the rights of every individual: the rights to live in peace, the rights to recognition anywhere as a person, and the rights to freedom of movement of residents within the borders of each state. According to the UNHCR, on their global website, emphasizes the importance of international solidarity in sharing the responsibility of refugee protection and how nations should share global responsibility to global issues. The refugee problem is a matter of concern to the international community and must be addressed in the context of international cooperation and burden sharing. Hosting refugees aligns with humanitarian values by providing protection and support to those fleeing persecution and violence. As a member of the United Nations, We are also fulfilling our humanitarian obligation and responsibility as part of the UN. Having the Federated States of Micronesia become a signatory member of the Refugee Convention establishes our place in the world. Point number 2. Being a signatory member of the United Nations Refugees Convention will enable the FSM to build better relationships with other countries and in turn foster a good reputation for the nation. Being born and raised here in the FSM, I have come to appreciate the culture of Fegen or togetherness. I have been very fortunate to grow up here and witness firsthand how things are done effectively and efficiently because of how we share the responsibilities in our family or extended family and in our island communities. In our culture, we have a saying that says, egg, atubuk. Translated into English language, this literally means yours, mine, and ours. It's a common saying here in Chuk to emphasize how when a task is to be done or when a challenge is there to overcome. We should remember that we aren't alone in overcoming it, but we'll always have family beside you to help you through. Outfitting or working together in the past was commonly practiced through the building of our traditional houses when the loan was to be made or when everybody needed to come together to weave the leaves for the house. Today, that practice can be seen in weddings, graduations, birthday parties, funerals, the building of an oud, or in Uluru Danwa. This is one of the sacred customs we have in the FSM, and it is widely spread from the 4 sister states of the FSM. Because of this, we welcome guests with full compassion and excellent hospitality. This in Chuk is called Awasana to Aras. It means welcoming guests and making them feel at home. As we become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention, we extend this unique part of our culture at a larger scale, building a good name for us at an international level. Based on the article titled, Benefit Resettled Refugees Bring to Japan by Moa. There was a study done to evaluate the pilot project on hosting refugees, and it highlighted how accepting refugees has raised Japan's international reputation as a humanitarian country tolerant to multiculturalism. Refugee acceptance is usually seen as a humanitarian action which creates no negative impact on other countries. Based on the Economist Intelligence Unit Soft Power Index, it recognizes countries that demonstrate compassion and generosity towards refugees as leaders in global diplomacy. Article titled, How U.S. Immigration Policy Creates a Robust Soft Power Advantage for America, discussed how policies that create soft power include expensive student employment, diversity visa programs, and consistent commitment to refugee resettlement. In both the short term and long term, these policies boost the ability to the U.S. to engage with global audiences and project images of cooperation and tolerance that, in turn, translate into soft power. In our interview with Honorable Lieutenant Governor of Chuk State, he explained how taking in refugees will show the Chukese culture of compassion and collaboration in helping others and how it could benefit our reputation amongst other countries, clearing up existing stereotypes when coming to the aid of those in need. Helping refugees shows that we are compassionate and responsible. When we offer a safe place for people in need, we demonstrate our commitment to human rights and global cooperation. This positive image can lead to stronger relationships with other nations and even benefit us in trade and diplomacy. The third and final reason as to why we should become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee is because it provides us opportunities to benefit our country in various ways of our society and the economy. For one, many refugees are shown to start their own businesses, creating jobs and stimulating economic activity. A research conducted by Fiscal Policy Institute in the United States uncovered that refugees are more likely to become entrepreneurs compared to the other immigrant groups, contributing to local economies. Immigrants, and in this case refugees, make up over 27% of the entrepreneurs in the US. In addition, refugees often contribute to the host country's economy through their participation in the labor force. Research by the National Bureau of Economic Research in the United States found that refugees tend to have high rates of labor force participation and contribute positively to economic growth. According to a report by UNHCR, Rafael Pasami, a Congolese refugee in Kenya, now runs the largest community-led recycling enterprise in Kenya. In turn, he created over 500 jobs for refugees and the local community, allowing them to earn an income and support their families. USA refugee statistics reported back in 2015, refugees' families contributed as much as 77.2 billion in household income. In the same year, over 181,000 refugees entrepreneurs generated 4.6 in business income. These businesses provide jobs, goods, and services for thousands of Americans, both foreign and native born. Finally, refugees often bring in perspectives and talents in various fields, including art, literature, and academia. Some examples are well-known author Khaled Hosseini and scientist Albert Einstein. A study done by Harvard Business Review and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology reported diverse teams outperform homogeneous ones in problem solving and innovation. Research published in the International Journal of Intercultural Relations highlights the positive impact of cultural exchange and social cohesion and mutual understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, proponents, for the proposition for the main argument. At this time, opponents, you will have 5 minutes to rebut the proponent's main argument.
Good morning, judges, ladies and gentlemen. The proponents presented 3 good arguments, but we still find them not convincing enough to persuade us that there is a need for FSM to be a signatory of the 1951 Refugee Convention. Their first argument was that it helps fulfill moral and humanitarian obligation. We would like to argue that while it may fulfill moral and humanitarian obligation, joining the Refugee Convention could disproportionately burden Micronesia with hosting refugees due to its geographic location and limited resources. Moreover, we respectfully assert that Micronesia should prioritize its own citizens' needs and well-being over accommodating refugees from other regions. Our proponent's second argument was that it enables better relationship with other countries, and in their argument, they mentioned our culture. But we strongly argue that signing the convention could strain social cohesion and resources, potentially undermining our cultural values. We would like to assert that while compassion is important, Micronesia must balance its cultural values with practical considerations and prioritize the welfare of its citizens. And lastly, the proponent team has implied that the convention provides opportunities to benefit our society and economy. But as shown by our argument, we have seen that the economic benefits provided by refugees is reaped from thriving refugees, and Micronesia does not have the ability to create a stable environment able to process and create thriving refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, dear judges, We can welcome and take care of refugees without the need to sign and bind ourselves to the 1951 Refugee Convention, period. Thank you.
Thank you, opponents of the proposition. Proponents, you have 3 minutes to respond to opponents' rebuttal.
The opposing team mentioned how taking refugees is incapable of our limited resources. However, I am still not convinced. Some people think hosting refugees might be too difficult, but it's important to remember our humanitarian values. Refugees are fleeing dangerous situations. By helping them, it will show our compassion and commitment to human rights, and also it is the right thing to. Do. Taking in refugees is a powerful way to show our common humanity and make the world a better place. As I mentioned in my main speech, this nation seeks to accept anyone regardless of their race. Hosting refugees is a global issue. Global issue requires global cooperation. While it's true hosting refugees can strain resources, it's important to recognize that there are also significant benefits to welcoming them into our communities. By providing aid and support, we not only uphold humanitarian values but also foster diversity and resilience within our society. Moreover, building relationships with other countries through refugee hosting can lead to diplomatic opportunities and international cooperation. It's a chance to demonstrate solidarity and strengthen our standing in the global stage. Additionally, refugees bring skills, perspectives, and entrepreneurial spirit that can enrich our economy and workforce. With proper planning and support systems in place, they can become valuable contributors to our society, helping to address labor shortages and stimulate economic growth. In a sense, while there are challenges associated with hosting refugees, the potential rewards, both humanitarian and practical, make it a worthwhile endeavor that aligns with our values and aspirations as a nation. Under the FSM Action Plan of the United Nations, it says equity over equality in the refugees. Thank you.
Thank you, proponents. You will now hear the main arguments from the opponents, and you have 15 minutes for your main argument.
Good morning, judges, my dear proponents, ladies and gentlemen. Knock knock, who's there? Refugees. We the opponents agree that Micronesia should welcome any refugees that will possibly arrive onto our shores. But we strongly disagree that Micronesia become a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention, since there's simply and absolutely no need to do so. Our argument number one has on to why it relates to Micronesia's sovereignty and autonomy. Micronesia's sovereignty and autonomy are vital for its self-governance and ability in prioritizing the needs of its citizens. Becoming a member to the 1951 Refugee Convention would subject Micronesia to external obligations and oversight, potentially compromising its ability to control its own immigration and asylum policies. For example, once Micronesia become a member to the 1951 Refugee Convention, we would be obligated to adhere to the Convention's definition of a refugee and grant asylum to those who best meet the criteria. This, in turn, could limit Micronesia's flexibility in adapting its policies to changing circumstances and local needs. As former Australian Prime Minister John Howard stated, and I quote, "We will decide who comes into this country and the circumstances in which they come," end quote. Similarly, Micronesia must retain control over its immigration and asylum policies to best serve its interests and protect its sovereignty. Argument number two, resource constraints. Question to my dear proponents. Where do the FSM get most of our funds from? And does the FSM have enough money into feeding refugees, providing decent housing for refugees, medical assistance, utilities, and so on? Again, where do we, the Federated States of Micronesia, get most of our funds from? Our funds are allotted from the Compact of Free Association as well as donations, in which these funds are already allotted to certain services. Where and how do we see Micronesia supporting refugees when we cannot even support ourselves? Micronesia is already facing its own significant resource constraints, including limited land area, infrastructure, and financial resources. Hosting refugees could strain already fragile public services such as healthcare and education, which are essential for the well-being and development of the local population. Take countries like Lebanon and Jordan, for example, where they struggle to provide adequate services to a large refugee population, leading to social and economic challenges. In Micronesia's case, added strain on resources could exacerbate existing vulnerability and hinder the efforts to address pressing domestic issues. As former Lebanese Prime Minister Fatima Words remarked, and I quote, "Lebanon is always under the threat of having its fragility turned into a predicament," end quote. In a similar way, Micronesia cannot afford to risk its prosperity and stability by taking on additional responsibility without adequate resources. Moving on to argument number 3, cultural and social impact. Micronesia has a unique cultural identity and social fabric that could be impacted by hosting refugees. For example, countries like Germany and Sweden have experienced tensions and social conflicts resulting from the cultural differences between the refugees and the local population themselves. In Micronesia, where cultural preservation is paramount, integrating refugees with different cultural backgrounds could disrupt social cohesion and tension. As former German Chancellor Angela Merkel words gave, and I quote, "Multiculturalism leads to parallel societies and therefore remains a quote-unquote lifeline," end quote. Correspondingly, Micronesia must prioritize the preservation of its cultural heritage and social harmony, ensuring that the needs of its citizens are not overshadowed by external obligations. Bombe Mech, Ye Chuk, Bange Prashai, Irarak Ya. Let Micronesia be Micronesia. Argument number 4. FSM UN membership ensuring the refugee protection without the 1951 Refugee Convention. Yes, you heard it right. Even though the FSM is not a part of the 1951 Refugee Convention or its 1967 protocol, it still has certain obligations and responsibilities towards refugees and asylum seekers based on its membership in the United Nations and adherence to other international human rights instruments. Take these 5 supporting evidences as affirmation. Evidence number 1, respect for international human rights laws. As a member of the United Nations, FSM is bound by the principles outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which provides for the right to seek asylum from persecution as stated in Article 14. Evidence number 2, non-refoulement principle. The principle of non-refoulement, which prohibits returning individuals to a country where they may face serious threats to their life or freedom, is considered customary international law. This means it is binding on all countries regardless of whether or not they are members to the 1951 Refugee Convention. FSM is thus obligated not to return refugees or asylum seekers to a place where they could face persecution, torture, or other serious harm. Moving on to evidence number 3, obligations under other human rights treaties. FSM is a party to several international human rights treaties that include provisions relevant to the protection of refugees and asylum seekers such as A, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. This includes the rights that apply to all individuals within the Federated States of Micronesia, including the right to life, liberty, and security of person, and the right to be free from torture, cruel, inhumane, degrading treatment, or punishment. B, Convention on the Rights of the Child. This requires the FSM to ensure that the best interests of the child are of primary consideration in all actions concerning children, including refugee children. Evidence 4, general UN obligations. As a United Nations member, the Federated States of Micronesia is expected to cooperate with UN bodies such as the UNHCR, otherwise known as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and adherence to UN General Assembly resolutions and Security Council resolutions relevant to refugees and international protection. Evidence number 5, regional cooperation and agreements. FSM is a part of the Pacific region, where regional cooperation on issues such as migration and refugees are common. FSM is encouraged to participate in regional framework and agreements that address refugee protection and asylum processes. In summary of these 5 evidences, even though the Federated States of Micronesia is not a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention, it still has significant obligations under customary international law, other human rights treaties, and its membership in the United Nations to protect the rights of refugees and asylum seekers who arrive onto our shores. So why? Why the need for the Federated States of Micronesia to become a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention? My co-debator, Yutomi Faith Yarasa, would elaborate more as on to why we say no to the resolution.
Argument number 5, security risks. Hosting refugees could pose security risks to Micronesia, including potential infiltration by criminal elements or individuals with extremist ideology. For example, countries like France and Belgium have faced security challenges followed by terrorist attacks carried out by individuals with links to refugee populations. While instances of criminals disguising as refugees are relatively rare compared to the overall refugee population, there have been documented cases where individuals with criminal intentions have exploited the refugee system for their own purposes. Need evidence? Here are a few examples. Europe. In the wake of the European migrant crisis, there have been reports of individuals with criminal backgrounds entering Europe posing as refugees. For example, in 2015, 2 terrorists involved in the November 2015 Paris attacks entered Europe through Greece posing as Syrian refugees. This incident raised concerns about the security risks associated with the large influx of refugees and migrants into Europe. Australia. In Australia, there have been cases of individuals with criminal records attempting to gain asylum under false pretenses. For instance, in 2016, Australian authorities uncovered a syndicate involved in human trafficking and illegal immigration, where individuals were facilitating the entry of people with criminal backgrounds into the country by exploiting the asylum system. And our last example, the United States. While the United States has a rigorous vetting process for refugees, there have been isolated incidents of individuals with criminal histories gaining entry into the country as refugees. For example, in 2011, 2 Iraqi refugees living in Kentucky were arrested on charges of providing material support to terrorists, highlighting the potential security risks associated with the refugee resettlement process. These examples underscore the importance of robust screening and vetting procedures for refugees to mitigate the risk of individuals with criminal intentions exploiting the refugee system, which the Federated States of Micronesia does not have the resources, equipment, and capabilities to do so. While the overwhelming majority of refugees are fleeing persecution and oppression and pose no threat to host countries, it is still essential to remain vigilant against potential security risks. In Micronesia, where security infrastructure is very limited, the risk of exploitation and radicalization among refugees is a legitimate concern. As former French President François Hollande stated, and I quote, "We are in a war against terrorism," end quote. Similarly, Micronesia must prioritize the safety and security of its citizens, ensuring that any decision regarding refugee policies minimizes potential risks to national security. And lastly, argument number 6, alternative solutions. There are alternative solutions to address the refugee crisis that do not involve signing the 1951 Refugee Convention. For example, countries like Japan and South Korea have focused on providing financial assistance and humanitarian aid to refugee hosting countries, contributing to global efforts without directly hosting refugees themselves. In Micronesia's case, supporting regional initiatives for refugee resettlement and protection could alleviate the burden of host countries while addressing the root causes of displacement. As former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stated, and I quote, "Japan is determined to fulfill its responsibility as a member of the international community," end quote. Similarly, Micronesia can play a constructive role in addressing the refugee crisis without compromising its sovereignty and autonomy. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, our dear countrymen, there is no need to be a signatory of the 1951 Refugee Convention because the FSM is already a member of the United Nations. There is no need to be a signatory just to be welcoming and hospitable, because the truth is, we, Chukis, Yapis, Prashayans, and Pohnpeians are already welcoming and hospitable since the beginning of time. Thank you.
Thank you, opponents, proponents. You will have 5 minutes to rebut the opponent's main argument.
Thank you, negative team, for your main speech. However, I am still not convinced. Judges, let me go down their outline. First, they mentioned something about lacking in resources. Well, to inform you, the UNHCR action plan for the FSM acknowledges our challenges and are prepared to assist us in ways. It states they would be more hands-on, assisting by providing practical advice and training to relevant officials to integrate good practices. Also, the number and complexity of asylum seekers' claims likely to be received by the individuals, Pacific Island state. Next, you said cultural differences. Well, cultural differences foster intercultural understanding and appreciation. Individuals can learn about different practices, traditions, languages, and perspectives by interacting with people from various cultures. This promotes empathy, tolerance, and respect for people from various backgrounds, eliminating prejudice and creating a more inclusive society. It is also said to be a method for people to bond with one another by discussing their different traditions as well as how they manage their resources and land. And you also mentioned that we do not need to join the 1951 Refugee Convention. These laws mentioned are very general and hard to apply to refugees in the FSM. Without proper guidelines, in our interview with the former AG, Joseph Gallin, he explained how there was a case he dealt with that involved Nepalese and Indian individuals that washed up on the shores of Ghana. He had a difficult time on determining how they should deal with them due to how there was no guidelines or specific laws to refugees. Now, being a part of the convention, it can be the first step in creating these laws specific for refugees. Lastly, you stated many security concerns for the FSM. Well, according to the UNHCR, people normally go through a process called refugee status determination to determine whether their circumstances qualify them as refugees. A person must meet the qualifications to be identified as a refugee. The security argument must be handled with the nuance. While it is critical to prioritize security measures and perform comprehensive screenings of refugees, it is equally important to understand that refugees are frequently fleeing violence and persecution. The vast majority are innocent people seeking protection, and they should not be viewed as possible security risks. Only about 1% of refugees are documented and recognized by the UNHCR, and so even then, only a small percent of that 1% is allowed to be brought or hosted internationally according to aph.gov.au or the Parliament of Australia. And so, we shouldn't think of it as risks, but as assets, and we are the FSM, a peaceful and hospitable and strong people. And so that is why we should join, and we shouldn't have any security concerns, and we shouldn't worry about the lack of resources, because we are getting help from the UNHCR and the UN. Thank you.
Thank you, proponents and opponents. You have 3 minutes to rebut. Proponents will respond.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, the proponents rebutted 4 of our 6 main arguments. Please allow me, on behalf of my team, to respond and clarify everyone. Our argument number 1, our first point in which they addressed was about resource constraints. We would like to acknowledge that the potential economic benefits of hosting refugees, but emphasize that the burden of Micronesia's resources could still outweigh these benefits, especially considering the nation's limited capacity to support a large influx of refugees. Furthermore, we would like to highlight that Micronesia's primary responsibility is to its own citizens, and any decisions to assist refugees must be weighed against the impact on local communities and existing social welfare programs. Our second point in which they addressed was about cultural and social impact. We would like to respectfully stress that while refugees may enrich Micronesia's cultural diversity, as stressed by the opposing team, the potential for social tensions and disruption to local communications cannot be ignored. Moreover, we respectfully argue that maintaining cultural identity and social cohesion are crucial for the stability and well-being of Micronesia, and any integration efforts must be carefully managed to address these concerns effectively. Our third point in which they addressed was about the UN membership. The principle of non-refoulement and other protections under customary international law are widely recognized and respected, providing a strong and enforceable basis for protecting refugees without additional treaties. Moreover, Micronesia's engagement in regional cooperation and frameworks and its adherence to other international human rights are more than adequate to address refugee protection needs effectively, even in complex situations. The last point in which they addressed was about security risk. We would like to respectfully reiterate the importance of prioritizing national security and emphasize the need for stringent vetting processes to mitigate any potential security risk posed by refugees. We argue that Micronesia cannot afford to compromise its security for the sake of humanitarianism, and that ensuring the safety of its citizens must remain paramount. Overall, our response aims to reinforce the importance of sovereignty, security, and societal integrity, while addressing the specific concerns raised by the affirmative side. Judges, ladies and gentlemen, please take note that the negative arguments unfortunately far outweighs the arguments of the proponents. Thank you.
Thank you, opponents. Proponents, you will have 4 minutes for your summation.
Thank you, worthy debaters, judges, family, and friends. We have come to the end of our debate. I want to acknowledge my gratitude to the Supreme Court, the school organizations, fellow debaters, judges, and everyone in this building for sacrificing your valuable time to this significant debate day. From now on, I will be concluding my points and proposition to the amendment stating, be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia should become a signatory member of the 1951 Refugee Convention. First and foremost, hosting refugees is consistent with core ideals of human rights and compassion. The FSM should provide sanctuary to those fleeing persecution and violence. Not only saves lives, but it also respects each individual's dignity and fundamental worth. By providing refuge to the refugees, host countries exhibit solidarity with the international community and reaffirm their dedication to the ideals of compassion, empathy, and solidarity. Furthermore, the FSM hosting refugees can improve diplomatic relations and international collaboration. By showing hospitality and solidarity to refugees, the FSM can improve their global reputation, promote goodwill, and form alliances with other countries and international organizations. In an increasingly interconnected world, collaboration and solidarity are critical for addressing difficult global issues, including forced displacement, violence, and poverty. Lastly, the FSM hosting refugees can generate economic opportunities and advantages. Refugees are not just recipients of help, they can contribute to the economic prosperity of FSM and especially Chuk and the other states. Many refugees are skilled employees, entrepreneurs, and inventors who, given the right opportunities, may make the major contributions to their new home. By utilizing refugees' talents and potential, the FSM will boost economic growth, fill labor shortages, and foster innovation and entrepreneurship. Hosting refugees is not just a moral duty, but a profound testament to our economic boost, global reputation, and our moral obligation as the Federated States of Micronesia. Thank you.
Thank you, proponents. And now, opponents, you have 4 minutes for your submission.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, and worthy proponents, as we near the conclusion of this pivotal debate, let us reflect on the impassioned discourse that has unfolded. Knock, knock, who's there? Refugees. It is not just a question, but a poignant reminder of the profound choices confronting our nation today. Throughout this debate, our team has stood firm against the notion that the Federated States of Micronesia should become a signatory of the 1951 Refugee Convention. From the outset, we championed the sacred principles of Micronesia's sovereignty and autonomy, a cornerstone upheld by nations across the globe. As history has shown, the preservation of sovereignty is not merely a matter of pragmatism, but a solemn duty to future generations. Signing the convention would subject Micronesia to eternal obligations and oversight, jeopardizing our ability to control our own immigration and asylum policies, a risk too great to ignore. Moreover, we confronted the stark realities of resource constraints, where every decision carries weight in a world of finite resources. Micronesia's decision to refrain from signing the convention is not a rejection of compassion, but a prudent acknowledgement of our nation's limitations. Hosting refugees could strain our already limited resources, compromising the well-being of our citizens and hindering our ability to address pressing domestic issues. We also explored the complexities of cultural and social impact, where the preservation of Micronesia's unique identity is paramount. The integration of refugees could disrupt social cohesion and dilute our cultural fabric, posing significant challenges to our nation's social harmony. Our cultural heritage must be protected and nurtured, ensuring that future generations inherit a Micronesia that remains true to its roots. In closing, please allow us to reiterate. Resolve, the Federated States of Micronesia should not be a signatory of the 1951 Refugee Convention because there is no need to. The FSM is already a member of the United Nations and we are already obligated to protect the rights of refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, let us seize this moment to reaffirm our resolve, to stand tall as guardians of Micronesia's sovereignty, security, and societal integrity. As we navigate the complexities of the global refugee crisis, let us do so with courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to truth. God bless the Federated States of Micronesia. God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you, opponents. Debaters, now we will allow the judges to ask questions. And the questions is for clarifications of your arguments presented.
12 debate teams. You both did amazingly well, and you guys should be very proud of yourself, and this goes to all the debate teams for the past 2 days. This first question is for Chu, who argued in the affirmative team. You argued here today that essentially we should welcome refugees because there are statistics that show that refugees can become entrepreneurs and can improve the economic and business and contributions to society. However, in the FSM, both at a national and state level, there are limits on foreigners owning businesses and developing businesses. So what laws should or should not be changed to encourage this type of entrepreneurship, and what recommendations would you make?
So I'm just gonna stick to the topic of the 1951 Refugee Convention. So I'm saying, if we did join the convention, we wouldn't have to worry about all this because we would have help internationally from the convention, the nations of the convention, and the UN. That's all.
Thank you. This next question is for Pompey 2 team. You argued here today in discussion around radicalization, and there needs to be screening to ensure or prevent infiltration. Is it not enough that the FSM has joined Interpol and is now also a member of Asianpol, which are regional and international policing organizations? Is that not sufficient? Thank you for that question, but can you please repeat that once more? In the last year or two, the FSM has become a member of Interpol, the International Policing Organization, alert systems, all that good stuff. FSM has also become a member of Asianpol, which is a regional Asian policing body that also sends alerts about terrorists, potential people. Is that not a sufficient mechanism for helping to screen refugees for security purposes? Okay, thank you for saying that once more. But if I'm interpreting that right, what you're saying is that we already have a screening process. We already have a screening process, but right now, unfortunately, I cannot answer that question because what we're suggesting is that we should welcome refugees, but there should be more screening processes in the future to help mitigate the security risk. And that's all I can answer for you today. Thank you.
I don't have any questions for you guys. Just a brief remark. First of all, congratulations, as Yolanda stated, you all did very well. I know you guys have the most pressure being the very last debate team, and I see a lot of audience here today, so good job today. You guys sounded very confident, very clear, so keep it up. Congratulations.
I also don't have any questions for you. Great debate, everybody. I truly enjoyed being the judge for the debates yesterday and today. I'm especially proud of you all, and I hope that you will keep on the right track and work hard and accomplish all your dreams. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. And great debate, all the debating team. That concludes the debate, and we will have a short break the judges to calculate the scores, and we will hear the result after 10 minutes. We will have a 10 minutes break.
be at the Coresa Conference Hall, starting at 6:30 this evening. Just giving the judges a few more minutes. It's very tough, I understand the scores are very close, so please be patient. Everyone did a great job. You're all winners. Again, next year's body debate will be held in Koshai. So Koshai State, be ready to welcome us when we come to your island. There were questions earlier whether alternate debaters can participate in debate. The answer is yes. If you serve as an alternate debater, you are qualified and you can debate next year, provided you're still a high school student and not a college student. But for the debaters to give a chance to others, you can only debate once. Okay? So the scholarship award that will be provided to you, this is to help you in your next educational endeavor. So those will be released again for purposes of our audience here. Each debater will receive a scholarship award of $2,000. $2,000. The alternate debaters will receive $500. All debaters and all alternates, including the coach for each team, will receive a laptop. So these are the awards that are provided to these very bright, very intelligent students. Thank you.
I'm not nervous.
There are still water in the foyer. Please help yourself. Thank you. I'm not sure, but there might still be some sandwiches there. So the live stream that started yesterday and today will be uploaded on YouTube later. After the debate is completed, you will be able to sit back, relax in your own, and watch the whole 2 days of debate on YouTube. So let's give a big round of applause to High Solution that has been here since day one. There's another gentleman in the back, I believe that's also with your company, so Christopher, stand up. He's been hiding in the back. But we were able to watch online and it's very clear, so thank you. We received word from Bonpei, also those of us, those that were watching via satellite through Bonpei, also commented that it was very clear. So thank you, and thank you to the debaters for speaking directly to the mic, because that made a big difference. Thank you to our justices, thank you for the staff that really helped. Again, we want to take this opportunity to thank our two state Supreme Court staff that have worked very hard to ensuring that we have a smooth law day debate this year. Our supporters from the True State Law Debate Organizing Committee, may I ask that you please rise for recognition, please. The True State Law Day Organizing Committee. I know you're sitting here in the audience. Stand up. They're sitting here and they're not standing, but thank you to, for all your support. Yeah. Maybe proper also to recognize the parents of all the debaters. Those of you who are sitting in the gallery, may you please stand for recognition. Families of all the debaters from the 4 states, please stand. Thank you.
The one in the white is my mom.
The one in the white, stand up, please. There. Without your support, these children, the youth, would not be who they are today. They performed exceptionally well yesterday and today. So credit should be given to the parents for your continued support for these children's education, as well as, let me ask that the coaches please rise for recognition, please. All coaches, or state. In the opening ceremony yesterday, we give recognition to the coaches, because as you know, this is the summer, so school is out. And it is often difficult to find someone who would volunteer himself or herself to help coach these students. It is not easy. So these are volunteer work. We do not pay for their time. And so therefore, the little thing that the judiciary, the Supreme Court can do to help is at least provide a laptop for the coach. And so the travel they get, it's a requirement under our rules for the debate that each team will travel with a coach who will serve as the chaperone for these, the debaters. So thank you to the coaches as well. Without your support, I'm sure the exceptional work that we see will probably be just a little bit. But now, every year we see improvement in the performance of the debaters. This year serves the 32nd year of national debate. It also marks the 43rd year of the FSM Supreme Court, FSM Judiciary's anniversary. So that's why it's held around July 12th. July 12th is the anniversary for the court. And we want to combine the debate to also be part of the commemoration of our anniversary. So that's why the debate is going on, and it's on a rotation basis. So thank you to the True State for hosting us this year, and we look forward to next year for Koshai to host. So Koshai will be hosting 2025 National Law Day in Koshai. How are our judges doing? We should hold them in contempt, huh? Sitting next to me here is our Associate Justice, the Honorable Larry Weinberg, who is the Associate Justice for the FSM Supreme Court assigned here for Chief Office. So thank you, Judge, for also bearing with us. I'm glad I'm not a judge. I don't have to do the math. It's probably the most difficult thing to do. Like I said, it's a very close, everyone is a winner. Every one of you, you're all winners. So it's just a matter of the tally, the scores that the judges will do. That one team becomes the champion. There's a second, third, fourth, fifth place. So again, the awards will be issued tonight. We invite families of the debaters to please join us this evening. The Department of Education, Chu State, the organizing committee for the Chu State also to please join us. And those that are part of the program, you're cordially invited. At this time, I also would like to recognize our main sponsor for this year is FSM Telecom, FSM Telecommunications, and the radio stations here and throughout the nation. FSM Telecom is able to provide free live stream throughout the FSM, so let's give FSM Telecommunications a big round of applause. Additionally, the scholarships of the funding for this annual debate, we want to also thank again our FSM Congress, FSM President's Office and FSM Congress for continuing to support the FSM Judiciary in providing the scholarship awards that, and all the expenses for our annual law day debate. So let's give a big round of applause to President's Office, thank you to the Chu State Judiciary, the Governor's Office, Chu State Governor's Office, the House of Senate, House of Representatives here in Chu as well. So thank you for joining us. I understand one of the Chu senators is here, and or maybe a couple of them whose children are part of the debate team. So thank you for joining us. Thank you. One of your senators, stand up for recognition, sir, was a former, thank you. A former coach for YAP, for YAP, and now he's a senator here. A lot of our coaches are former debaters. And the coach for YAP State was also a former debater. The coach for Koshai was a former debater. Looks like the judges are here. I just want to. You have your pens and pencil ready? Everyone is searching for. I'll give you a few minutes. You need your pens, you need your pencil. Who has a drum beat? You need these? Russell, you okay? Ready? Debaters? Again, before I announce, please know that every one of you is a winner. Okay, so let's give them a big round of applause. The fact that you were selected to represent your state, that says it all. Okay? So here's the result of the 2024 FSM National Law Day debate. This is the total scores tallied from day 1 to day 2. Day 2. The judges scored each debate according to the sites that each team presented. Each team was required to argue the pro and con. So here's the total score. Starting with Team Yap. Adding the 2 debates, Yap team received a total of 611 points. 611 points. Team Koshai received a total of 640 points. 640. Team Chuk received a total point of 648 points. Team Pohnpei OLM, or Team Pohnpei 2, received the total point of 681 points. 681. Pohnpei Team 1, or Pohnpei STA team, received a total point of 690 points. 690. That means the champion team for 2024 National Law Day debate goes to Pohnpei Team 1 STA. Please stand. Second place goes to Pohnpei 2 OLM. Our Lady of Mercy Tabernacle, please stand. Third place goes to Team Chuk. Please stand. And fourth place goes to Team Koshai. Please stand. Team Yap, please stand for recognition. So that is the total score, total tally. Congratulations, all of you. So that concludes. Let's give our judges a big round of applause. So may I ask the referent to please come up to give the benediction before we conclude our debate. All right, thank you. May I ask that we all rise, please?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Almighty and ever-living God, we give you thanks and praise for the immense praises you have been given to us. We thank you for our nation, our culture, and our unique languages that harmonize who we are as people of one God and one faith. We ask you to continue to bless us as we depart for our different roles, responsibilities, works, careers, and vocations. Bless our leaders for our government, the leaders of our church, and bless this young generation that they are professing what is your will for our nations and our neighbors. We most truly grateful for the gift of our seed that unites our islands and our people. Continue to bless each one of us here and now, and our life and our services, as this is our contribution to your kingdom here and now, but not here. We ask all of this through Christ our Lord. Amen. The Lord be with you.
And also with
May
you.
Almighty God bless you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Thank you, and so that concludes our 2024 FSM National Law Day debate. Thank you all for being here with us to show your support. For the debaters, coaches, we have lunch served in the conference room for you. We ask the parents also to join us, and the senators that are here. The parents of the debaters, we have some pastries readily available for everyone. So thank you all so very much. And again, the reception, the award night will be at 6:30 this evening at Curasa Conference Hall, starting at 6:30 this evening. Thank you, and we are adjourned.